Hello, I am Saki, and tonight is the first Poetry Night Thursday night poetry. One of those. It's Thursday night, and I'm going to read you some poetry that I wrote. And I think this is going to be a weekly thing. I'm hoping, well, I kind of made like an informal New Year's resolution that I would share a lot more of my poetry this year because I write a lot of poetry and it just lives in these notebooks where no one will ever read them. So I'm going to read them to you, whether you like it or not. So Thursday nights at around, I guess around 7 p.m. Or Thursday nights at some point. I'm going to be here and I'm going to show you some poetry. Okay, so the format of this is going to go old poetry and then new poetry. So old poetry is something I wrote at some time ago. And then new poetry is something that I wrote in the last week. So since the previous episode, since last Thursday. Alright, I guess we'll just dive right in. Oh wait, old poetry first. Okay, so the old one, let me give you a little bit of background on this one. So this one is, last year my friend and I challenged each other to rewrite a classic fable called The Ant and the Grasshopper. Or maybe it's The Grasshopper and an Ant. Anyway, one of those. And the fable is like this. So there's an ant and a grasshopper, and the ant is busy gathering grains in the summer to stock up for winter, and then winter comes along and the grasshopper has just been a lazy butt the entire year and hasn't been stocking up at all. And then he's like starving, and then the ant has the food and is fine, and the grasshopper's like, hey, can you spare some grains? And the ant's like, no, get out of here. Or in the children's version, I think the ant is like, sure, but now you learn your lesson, so don't do it next summer. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the original fable, and this poem is my spin on that story. It's called Gary the Grasshopper. Alright, let's see if I can read through my own poem without tripping on the words. I do that a lot. Okay, here we go. Gary was a grasshopper who's better than the rest. Everything he tried, he always tried his best. Inspired but unmotivated, his peers could not relate, for to idle as a grasshopper is a habit quite innate. August came around one day, and Gary saw the ants, anticipating winter, harvesting the plants. How responsible, he thought, how proper. Maybe I can set example for the other hoppers. So he toiled through September, gathering the grain, until that fateful morning came the yuletide wind and rain. The groundhogs shut their burrows, the ants hid in their nest, the bears retired to their caves, a cozy place to rest. Gary, getting chilly, with no burrow, nest, or cave, entombed himself beneath his seeds, a silo for a grave. Safe and sound, he told himself, with plenty food to spare, I knew that it was worth it, spending autumn to prepare. A hungry sparrow flying by, less well-stocked than Gary, spied the heaping stash of seeds, and insect, quite unwary. The bird transformed that lofty mound into a barren patch of dirt, then, having pecked the pile clean, had Gary for dessert. Okay, what kind of morals does that teach kids? Anyway, that's Gary the Grasshopper. That's this week's old poem. Alright, so for my second poem, my new poem, this one is actually kind of old, but I just finished it this week. I had started working on it since last year. I was trying to get it ready in time for an art installation that I have up at the Oceanside Museum of Art. And, I don't know if I can explain the entire exhibit all at once, but I'm going to put a link to it in the video description. And let's see, what kind of background information can I give you without ranting for like 10 minutes? I know, I'll go to my website and pull up the page with the work that inspired it all. Okay, so for my art installation, I made several characters. I designed several characters that were inspired by birds, and this particular one was inspired by vultures. And basically it represents in human form what a scavenger is in the dating world. So basically there are like alpha males who will go hit on girls, and date and spend a lot of time dating and looking good to attract a mate. And at some point, they're going to become kind of worthless because they've spent their entire life just looking good and learning social skills or something. And then at some point, the ladies are going to have to get married and start a family or something, and they're looking for someone who will make a good father, someone with a steady income, someone with hobbies, someone interesting who's not just handsome. And at this point, it's I guess you could call them beta males, I don't know. Anyway, the other ones who weren't the alpha males are going to become way more eligible bachelors later in their life, and the ladies are going to come flocking to them. Anyway, that's the general story. Sorry to be so hetero-monogam-normative, but I guess this could apply to just dating in general, not just guys and girls. But let me show you the art. This is it. Wait, will that even work on my iPad? Okay, wow, you cannot see that at all. Anyway, this is a photo of the art installation. There's a guy in the middle. That's our scavenger. These are some vintage wedding gowns suspended above him, and they represent all of the single ladies. And this is the world's most eligible bachelor, a guy who spent his youth going to college, getting educated, getting a good job, learning about men's fashion, clearly, because he shopped at Saki.com. Just kidding. Okay, anyway, I'm going to put a link to that in the video description. But, so this was the art installation, and I wanted to put some poetry next to it to accompany the, what was the sentence I was saying? Anyway, I wrote some poetry for it, and then I didn't make the deadline for submitting all of my work. So I kind of gave up on the poem, but I revisited it in the last week, and I have now completed it. So, longest introduction in the world. Here's the poem. It's very short. It's untitled, but it goes with that work. Here we go. The hunter lusts for fresh meat, kills for glory and for fame. It's his play to chase his prey, that's why he calls it game. The scavenger sits idly, shakes his head and laughs, as he reaps the hunter's work and dines upon the scraps. For the scavenger is wiser and will readily partake, and in fact, he much prefers the taste of aged steak. Wow, sorry I butchered that. It's really messy in here. Anyway, so that was it. That's your dating advice for the night. Just kidding. That's my new poem. Okay, so I guess I'll see you next week. Please check out my website. And yeah, okay, I'll see you next week. Bye!